There's a lot going on in Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and some of the gameplay mechanics might be confusing to get the grasp of when starting it up for the first time. In this video, we are going to be going over some real simple yet essential tips and tricks to make your time through the game a lot more manageable, especially if you want to explore the higher difficulties and post-game content. All footage in this video is from within the first few chapters of the game, and these tips apply to all stages of the game, whether a beginner or an expert. Let's get started. In Final Fantasy Origin, the best strategy is to deplete your enemy's break gauge as fast as possible. The break gauge is the small little gauge underneath an enemy's health bar. By depleting this bar, you'll leave them open to a soul burst. You will know when you can use a soul burst on an enemy when that enemy is in a stunned state, and the button prompt will be on screen next to the enemy. By hitting circle on PlayStation or B on Xbox, you will perform a soul crush on the enemy, killing the enemy and increasing your max MP bar while also giving you some MP in the process. Sweet, huh? Soul crushes are so important to use because there's a good chance the enemy you soul crush will emit a shockwave upon being crushed, further weakening surrounding enemies' break gauges and sending them flying. This is what crowd control is all about. By using your action abilities, more specifically the attacks linked to your R2 or right trigger attacks, you will not only inflict more damage on your enemies, but you'll also hack away greatly at an enemy's break gauge. Keep in mind, these action attacks will eat at your MP, but it is worth it in the long run, as soul-crushing enemies will restore some MP as well as increase your MP gauge. Hitting an enemy from behind will land a critical hit, further depleting the enemy's break gauge, and hitting an enemy's weakness will also generate the same effect. See this gauge here in the middle of the screen? This is your very own break gauge. The more this depletes, the more you're in trouble. Once fully depleted, you are left vulnerable for a moment, and this could spell the end of your life. To make matters worse, your MP bar will also shrink. Make sure to keep your gauge as full as possible. Blocking enemy attacks is essential, but doing so chips away at your break gauge, and dodging or blocking will slow the gauge from refilling. Sometimes it's best to hightail it out of an encounter when your break gauge is low and wait for it to recharge. Also, dodging is essential to get out of harm's way and could save your life and your break gauge as well. You've got those invincibility frames when dodging, so take advantage of that. Also, by blocking just before an enemy's attack lands, you will initiate a parry. Parries increase your break gauge's recovery speed, so take advantage of this if you are good with your timing. We mentioned the Soul Crush earlier and how vital it is to use. When you see these dark vents, prioritize depleting their health bars as fast as possible, as doing so will allow you to Soul Crush it, defeating all enemies that came out of these vents. That's right, enemies will continuously spew out of these nasty vents, so the faster you Soul Crush these, you will no longer have to worry about any more enemies coming out of these. And all the ones who are currently spawned in will perish instantly once these vents have been taken care of. Lightbringer is an essential ability that you should use frequently when going against a tough enemy or hordes, as this will grant you increased break damage for a short period of time. Initiate Lightbringer by hitting L2 in circle or left trigger in B. You will see your Lightbringer bar at the center slowly deplete, and it is at this time to go commando on your enemies. Make sure to soul crush any enemies you have in your way, as they will generate shockwaves that will further weaken other enemies' break bars, allowing you to potentially string soul crushes. Soul Shield is a unique ability that you can use by hitting circle or B before an enemy attack lands. Use Soul Shield to block attacks and you will see your MP gauge increase. This is useful because the more MP, the more action attacks you can use with your R2 or right trigger. Be advised that by using the Soul Shield, even when you are not in combat, will deplete your break gauge rather rapidly. So use this sparingly when your break gauge is nice and full and you just want some more MP to unleash your heavy hitting attacks. Since we are talking about the Soul Shield, let's talk about instant abilities. Instant abilities are identified when you see purple text next to an enemy. This is to notify you that an enemy is using an attack that you can absorb and use it in your arsenal. To learn these attacks, use your Soul Shield and absorb that enemy's purple text attack, and you will have it to use in your arsenal. You can use these attacks by hitting square on PlayStation or X on Xbox. Just know that these instant abilities can only be used a few times, as you will immediately lose the ability to use these moves after a few uses. I like to absorb the fire spell that the fire bombs use and shoot them right back at them to make them self-destruct. Experiment with these instant abilities, as some of them are incredibly useful and helpful against mobs. Finally, make sure you use your resonance abilities. These can be activated by hitting left or right on the D-pad, and these basically trigger the use of your allies' abilities on the battlefield. You are not solely the one who is dishing out the damage here. Remember, you have 2 other allies on the battlefield assisting you, and although you cannot control them directly, they are a heck of a lot more useful when you use their resonance abilities, as they can take the aggro off you and/or deal massive damage to enemies. Remember, use these abilities by hitting left or right on the D-pad. These abilities have a cooldown to them, so you can't spam them. Don't forget about these useful abilities, because they can certainly assist you in battle. By utilizing these simple tips, you will have a much easier time with Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Remember, persistence pays off, and it's okay to fail, because in the end, repetition is the mother of all skill. Remember that you can always change the difficulty at any time, so do that if you are having particular difficulty on normal or harder modes. Also, take advantage of playing online. You can play online with up to 2 strangers or a friend or 2. And playing online definitely makes some of the more challenging encounters a lot easier. If you are interested in wanting to know more about Final Fantasy Origin's online mode, I will link my video talking about all aspects of the game's multiplayer in the description below. Some other general tips include having a good sense of your spatial awareness, as sometimes the best thing to do is to knock a tough enemy off a cliff or out of bounds, killing them instantly. Also make sure you aren't sent out of bounds too, as that will put a dent on your health bar. Keep your equipment up to date by constantly cycling out less effective gear, and also dismantle gear that you don't use. This is a gear-heavy game, so dismantle that old gear before starting up a new mission. You can only hold up to 500 pieces of gear, so get rid of everything you don't use. There's probably a lot more I can discuss regarding tips and tricks with this game, but these are the essential ones that will surely help you on your quest to kill chaos once and for all. If you found this video informative, I'd greatly appreciate you rain some likes on this video and consider subscribing to the channel. I make several videos a week about all the latest releases in the video game industry, including reviews, previews, tips and tricks, top 10s, and more. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to have you join the Fun My Life family. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything regarding this tips and tricks video, and share some of your own. Till next time, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll catch you in the next video.